The Leafs, of course, the better team on paper and supposedly the better team, even through the first two games. Definitely this second game, like a huge drubbing, by far the better team. I would even argue in the first game, it wasn't such a landslide that Montreal outplayed them. And obviously, you have the emotional factor playing in there, but a big response for Toronto in game two and draw a lot of penalties. They have some excellent production from the third line, not necessarily points, but just all three of those guys, Engvall, Kerfoot, Mikheyev, were everywhere and led to quite a few of the goals scored by the Leafs. And the vintage line with all the old men have a comeback game. You knew that, like I said, I think they just needed that first game to ramp themselves back up into playoff mode. And of course, Austin Matthews coming through in a big way with 3 points.
Yeah, first, love what Jason Spetz has done for this team so much. If you talk about those three, he's been, for me, by far the most bang for your buck value. And a huge part of that bang has been just a really steadily, consistently amazing shot in the slot that he's shown all season. And his speed, his line mates, his ice time are all going to limit the chances he's going to get. But when he gets those chances, he's still just as dangerous as anyone on the roster with it. And that's been huge for us at times this season. And we saw it there. And yeah, this is the score sheet that this series was supposed to look like. This team, in theory, had gone back to the drawing board, tightened up the defense, which was something that's costed them over the past couple of years. And now we're bringing that along with this like rocket-filled offense, which, as I've said multiple times, it doesn't matter if one of their best players get injured. And they can say that in a way that almost no other NHL teams can say. And it showed last night. So I'll also add, as nervous as we are as Leafs fans, every Habs fan I talk to is just as nervous. They all look on paper and see the Leafs as the better team. So I just thought I'd bring a little Montreal report to the show as I'm here. All the Habs fans feel like they can't stop Matthews, can't stop Marner, don't have the firepower to go against them.
But if you're a Habs fan, this series feels a little bit like house money because you're not expected to win it. And I think that's the difference is everyone has the Leafs picked. And if you don't win it, then it's the end of the world, right?
It's the same as Leafs culture though in Montreal. Like, we have been the underdogs against the Bruins so many times and still expected them to win it. So yes and no.
I think the big story that came out of this game that I wanted to talk about was the disparity in penalty minutes that came through. And that was probably the biggest complaint from Montreal fans. My response to what happened in that game would be, sure, the Leafs probably could have been called for a couple more. There were some things that they got away with, which I want to talk about is like awesome because that is what has been happening to us with the Bruins for the past series. Like, getting away with stuff is the Boston Bruins middle name. It's something that the Leafs are finally recognizing and starting to incorporate into their own play, which is just amazing to see. It's all the stuff from Simmons and Hyman and Kerfoot behind the play. It's all the little things that is getting under the skin of the Canadians. And when the Canadians came out and tried to establish themselves as the more physical team, as a tougher team, and now the Leafs are giving it back, it looks like the Canadians are complaining a little bit, in my opinion, but again, biased Leafs fan. But then again, I would say in terms of penalty disparity, yes, maybe the Leafs have got a couple more, but you can't really argue the penalties that Montreal got. The one that I would question is the slash on Wayne Simmons, but it looked like that directly interfered with possession and it was right in front of the net and in front of the officials, so it had to be called. But then after that, you've got Gallagher's cross check to the head of Hall, Kotkaniemi's cross check on Riley that breaks his stick. I don't know if it's called if his stick doesn't break, but if the stick breaks, you have to call that. It's just so obvious. Of course, then you have the challenge that is a brutal challenge that led to a penalty. So that doesn't even count as a real penalty that's called. No. And then late in the game, Byron, again, like I was saying, when the game's over, teams feel like that's their time to go out and hurt people. And Byron, with a dangerous play, gets the penalty there. and Weber, of course, with the cross check on Simmons as well. Like all of those are blatant penalties. So it's maybe the Leafs could get a couple more, and I imagine they're going to get a couple more as this series swings to Montreal for Game 3. But like it's a weak place to reach for when you're complaining about that game from Montreal perspective.
Man, that challenge. I had to do a double take watching the goal. I like 3 times watching the replay. I was so confused. I felt like I must have been missing something blatant.
Yeah, I cannot wait. Actually, maybe as our thumbnail for one of our videos, we should do the Marc Bergevin pointing at the TV screen because, yeah, that is an awesome meme material there.
And yeah, I love that it's not swinging to game management and you're getting punished for being chippy towards the end. We've had enough injuries. Thank you very much. Maybe I haven't read the latest on Tavares. The last I heard was medically fairly cleared. No idea when he's coming back to the
Yeah,
playoffs.
so the crazy update there is concussion. Obviously, we don't know how long that's going to be, but the doctors also diagnosed him with an MCL sprain. And so, really bizarre that that was found, but I don't know when that happened, but it's there. So it's looking like a 2 week minimum for that injury. And again, don't know what the concussion will be like, but in theory, he could be back in 2 weeks at the earliest. And then, of course, you build on whatever extra rehab setbacks plus whatever the concussion looks like. So my first guess is 3 weeks, and that's this series and probably the second series if the Leafs make it that far. So they now know they'll be without him for a while, and it's just move forward. Foligno pretty solid as a second line center for now, and Nylander also sharing that responsibility. I think that actually worked for them, and that's what it's got to be going forward.
Damn, if who knows how long he's been playing with that. I have been complaining a little about his speed all season. So maybe that's best case. You can't rush through like a concussion, stay in a dark room, not a lot of movement. And we see an even healthier and better, fingers crossed, come third round.